We are live. We are live. So thank everybody for coming on in. Just give me a quick second to make sure we are straight. And I have all of my ducks in a row, but I think we are good. So as promised, we do have our see, there we go.
All right.
Making sure make sure we're good. So as promised, we do have a guest in to us tonight. You know, we're in our campaign season, just making sure that voters, when we go to the ballot box, we know who we're voting for, because we hear that a lot. We see that a lot. Folks are saying, "Well, I didn't know about this person. We don't know about this candidate and all this stuff." So we've created a platform where the candidates running for governor are coming through our little shack here, and going to talk about their campaign. But first, before we start all that fun stuff, Jordan, what's up, man?
Hey,
my co-host here. What's up?
Hey, man, how you doing?
You got your own campaign, right?
I literally just got off the road as usual. It's kind of a broken record now. I was knocking on doors for some business owners in the area, preparing for our listening session later this week.
Okay.
So I knocked on about 30 business doors today. I got to meet a lot of the actual proprietors of those businesses and some of the people in the area, and just talking to them, getting to know them, and invite them to the session this Friday. So this Thursday, which will be at Kitchen 11, 6800 West Browndale Road. Right. And then, lastly,
what time? Say what
there you see, professional right here.
right.
5:30 until 7:30 at Kitchen 11, 6800 West Browndale Road.
In District
12. Yep, District 12, northwest side of Milwaukee. Yeah. And this will be focused specifically on small business owners and aspiring entrepreneurs. You don't have to be one of those two or to come. We want everyone to come through and tell us their opinion, but the conversation will be focused on the needs of business owners in that area.
Yeah.
So swing through.
Come on, y'all, swing through. Hey, we got a platform right here and letting us know what he's about. But Jordan is the truth. So I'll say, hey,
thank you.
People that are in District 12, get out there and vote, man. We keep talking about change and we want all these different things. Well, we got a candidate right here that's for the people, made by the people, and it's going to work for the people once you get
Milwaukee made.
Yeah. Milwaukee made. MPS proud too, right?
MPS proud.
Yeah.
Milwaukee made. Yes. All the way through.
All the way through. Yeah. So real quick before we get all the way in, I just wanted to make a quick small detour to national politics. It just, oh boy, it seems like we're in a nightmare that I hopefully one day is going to wake up from and like, oh, it was all a dream.
Yeah.
I don't think it is. But I just saw on the news today that I hate to say this, and I use this term very loosely, president of these United States has won a lawsuit.
Mm-hmm.
No, he tossed the lawsuit for the IRS in exchange for $1 billion they're going to give, and he's going to give this $1.7 billion of taxpayer money. Mm-hmm. That he's going to give to individuals who have been treated unfairly by the Biden Department of Justice, namely Jan 6ers. And we know, and we should all know what happened on January 6, 2021. So he's talking about compensating them for ransacking the Capitol, threatening to kill the vice president, beating and killing officers, y'all back to blue group, those people. Yeah. So he's going to make sure that they are fairly, first of all, he pardoned them, and now he's going to pay them. So yeah. Y'all take that with how you gonna take it, but boy.
I mean, it is corruption at the highest levels in plain sight. I think there's no way around it this time around. They're not even trying to hide it. They're blatantly just saying and calling what they're doing.
Yeah.
And they have no one is going to hold them account for it, so they feel like they can get away with it. So. And to this point, they have all three branches of government, and there has been, like I said, no accountability all the way around. So they're going to take it as far as they want to. And unfortunately, we are innocent bystanders in all of this.
Well, and I hate to pile on.
Well, come on.
The latest headline, beyond the $1.7 billion, I was just looking, is they included a provision that protects the Trump
and
businesses,
any IRS audits,
because they were under audit for the longest.
Who does that as the representative of all of us to say I'm not going to be held accountable for paying taxes? Like, so why? Like, what message does that send?
Right? Yeah. I mean, again, they're unencumbered by any responsibility of what's going to happen. They don't care. They don't think anyone's going to do anything to them. And as of right now, they're getting away with a lot of it. So until we stand up and do something, until we change Congress and we elect, a Democratic Party that's actually going to stand up and fight this stuff, hopefully in the next 2 years, then it's going to keep going on. So it's incumbent on us to make sure that we are doing our job in the face of all of this, to vote these suckers out, and make sure we get representatives who's going to really hold them to account.
And I have to take my dig here. And you silly black Republicans, y'all are sick. I'm gonna just say that y'all are sick. Continue. You got to have some kind of self-hate or something to continue to back this. Because I've seen online where y'all are cheering this on. Like what? Come on, this is just absolute madness. But yeah. So as promised, let's bring it back local.
Segue.
Let's bring it back local. We do have Missy Hughes with us this evening.
Missy Hughes.
I wish we had some like those cheering things. So Missy, thank you for coming on this evening. It makes us feel really great when we have esteemed individuals as yourself to come through and talk to us. So again, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me here. This is going to be fun.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
That's going to be fun.
I can see her smile. She looks like she's going to have some fun.
Please have some fun, especially in the face of that conversation.
Let's have some fun. So Missy, tell us about yourself. Are you involved in any local politics at all or anything of that nature?
So I am running for governor. I'm not sure if you said that, but just so everybody knows, it's actually the first time, like Jordan, I've run for office. So just diving into the deep end. But
yes,
I spent the last 6.5 years working for Governor Evers. I was his Secretary of Economic Development. So I ran economic development for the state. Nice. So I haven't run for office, but I've been in the public sector and in the public eye.
Okay.
And working for Wisconsin for the last 6.5 years. And before that, I worked for a company that was owned by farmers, a dairy cooperative called Organic Valley.
Okay.
It's based on the other side of the state. And so I worked in agriculture and manufacturing, but I'm a lawyer. I'm not a farmer, I'm a lawyer.
Really?
Yeah. And so just like thinking about what you guys were just saying about Trump and what they're up to, one of the things that I think about as governor is how do we stand up and fight back to what he's doing? And I kind of want to take the fight to him. This idea of not paying taxes or not being subject to audits, like that's our money, that they're taking and not paying in and not participating. So I feel like we should have something to say about that as a state.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I love that you just gave me another segue here. Yeah. as we said earlier, we don't have any scripts or anything like that. We just kind of go with the flow here. But you said something about taking a fight. Just recently, there was reports that the FBI contacted the Milwaukee County Election Commissioner here. And I told people, I feel that it was going to happen. I knew it was going to come here. What would be your stance if elected governor to kind of stop some of this craziness?
Well, I think it's really important to make sure that whoever they're investigating, whatever they're doing, is done completely in accordance with, all the crossing the T's and dotting the I's of what they're allowed to do, but also making sure that whoever they're coming after has the resources to protect themselves. So if they need legal assistance, if they need support, let's make sure they have it, and let's make sure we do everything we can to protect them and to step in when we can.
Because we can't agree that he did lose the 2020 election, right?
I think we can agree to that. Can we agree to that?
The fact that we're still litigating that 6 years, almost 7 years later.
I just thought Scott Walker said that Democrats are obsessed.
Where does he come from? Scott Walker goes.
He's like having a second life at this moment.
Go sit down, Scott Walker.
Please have several seats. Because you left us in this conundrum that we're in now because of him. With this state, but okay. I like that because I really do think that we need to start preparing ourselves and not be caught, off guard, because it's gonna come here. I feel that was just a test, because what they do is they test the water.
Sure.
They do these little things, and they say put these little things out there to see what kind of response they're gonna get. And then you're showing at the woman's home, like that's intimidation.
Sure.
That was pure intimidation. So I'm glad that you do take that stance. So as secretary in Evers' cabinet, what kind of economic policies do you say that you would run on for the Wisconsinites?
Well, let me go back to say, when I came in to be the secretary at WEDC, the first thing I had to do was clean up Scott Walker's mess at Foxconn.
Oh, that was a whole mess.
Right. So that was, I showed up and they handed me a 4-inch binder and they're like, here, turn to page 1. And so I'm experienced with having to clean up his messes and do all of that work. But the next thing that happened when I was secretary was COVID hit.
Mm-hmm.
And I really, at that moment, saw that Scott Walker's economic development of helping rich corporations and hoping it trickles down to communities was a failure.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so
Major.
We leaned in and said, we're going to help small businesses. We're going to make sure that we're working at the street level. And in fact, one of the first cabinet meetings that we had, I said, let's have it here at Sherman Phoenix. So we brought the cabinet over here because Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation supported Sherman Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
So it's fun to be here today to have this.
Wow. Okay.
But, it was really about making sure that we were in the communities that we were trying to serve, whether it's Milwaukee or our tribal communities or our rural communities, really, being there and understanding what the challenges are and finding the solutions that really work for those communities. So that's, as I think about economic policies, that's how I think about, really making sure that the community is telling us what they need. The businesses are telling us what they need, and we're there to support and to move things forward and find solutions.
Yeah. So WEDC, the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation,
Yep.
right? Okay. And so,
Good catch on the acronyms there.
yeah, we're going to make sure everybody knows what they are.
You read it all right perfectly.
I'm the resident nerd on the show.
Yeah.
So I just try to
He's
keep
our
it.
policy one.
Well, let's go a little bit more into like your economic development vision for the state. Obviously, we're dealing with affordability crisis. Housing prices are through the roof. Our grocery stores, especially here in Milwaukee, are leaving town as fast as they're coming in for some reason. Well, we know a lot of the reasons why, but they're coming out. So we live in Milwaukee. Obviously, we have a high concentration of impoverished people who live in the city. So from your economic policy stance, what are some ideas specifically around Milwaukee that will help generate revenue and keep some of our businesses, our small businesses, thriving here in Milwaukee, and then bringing more businesses in so that we can start seeing a cycle of development coming back into the city?
Yeah. So when I think about supporting small businesses wherever they are, but especially here in Milwaukee, you think about both access to capital and technical assistance. So let's policy wonky. I'll get here for a second.
Go right ahead.
So if you think about access to capital, that's being able to go into a bank and say, I want to start a business, or I want to have, I need support to expand, or I'm, for operating capital, like all of these things, you have to be able to show that you are a business that can receive that capital and be able to utilize it and pay it back.
So you have to have a business plan.
You have to have a business plan. Yeah. So all of that support is something that our small businesses need, and especially our Black and brown businesses. A lot of I think the figure I last heard was 98% of our Black and brown businesses in Wisconsin are sole proprietorships. So no employees. You really see a business grow and expand when it starts to have employees. But if you're not like these businesses that you talked to on Thursday, Jordan, if none of them have employees, then nobody's ever able to help each other to be like, this is how you do that. So making sure that the businesses have the technical assistance and the ability to learn, oh, this is how you do payroll. This is how you do cash flow, and supporting those businesses in that work. I worked a lot with Northwest Side CDC with Willie Smith to really be able to support businesses as they grow and expand and help them with the challenges and the obstacles along that way. Not just like showing up on day one, say, here you go, and then you're never heard from again.
Right.
It's all about growing. And that's how you really grow that cycle of businesses that are successful and that, can then employ people, and then those people can become businesses. Like, you have to really create that cycle, but you got to start at the beginning. You also need to go back and then think about things like training and housing and education and healthcare. Like, those are all also foundational to success within the community. Right. So as I think about being governor, as I think about economic development and building a strong economy, it's not only working with the businesses, but we have to go back and work at that level of making sure that people can show up for their work or for their business, and they have childcare, they have healthcare, they have steady housing and good housing so that they're stable. Yeah. These are all pieces of the whole puzzle.
Yeah. Well, and you said something in your comment there too that I'd love to hear about investing. Now, Milwaukee, as we know it, or some of us don't know, is the state's largest city, first off, and a lot of the revenue that the state gets comes out of Milwaukee. So you have to, you should really be looking at and kind of even babying Milwaukee, because that is the golden goose of the state. What would be your plan to ensure that Milwaukee continues to thrive so that we can continue to support other counties, but that we are also supported as well?
Well, first I want to say that, there's some that don't think that Milwaukee is an asset to the state. And I was really, when I lived on the west side of the state, raising my family, when I came into economic development, I was like, of course, Milwaukee is the economic engine of the state. Like, wake up, everybody. This is the reality. And so, supporting Milwaukee's success is supporting the whole state's success. So as I was secretary, I helped to bring Fiserv to downtown and make sure that their headquarters was there. I helped to have Milwaukee Tool to expand. So it's having good jobs within the city is one way to help support the city and success, and keep bringing in those big businesses so that people really have access to the good jobs. There's great companies. There's Rockwell, there's Milwaukee Tool, there's Fiserv, all of these businesses that support good paying jobs. But then really you want to create the community around that so that people want to live here. So people are excited for the culture, for the arts, for the sports, all of that, is really happening here in Milwaukee, but we want to make sure that it's successful, and we want to make sure that it continues to thrive. And so, it's doing that work. It's supporting the communities that really need to be lifted up. It's making sure that for the people who are showing up for work every day, that they're getting paid what they deserve to get paid, and not, the minimum wage right now in Wisconsin is bonkers, $7.25.
That's just crazy.
We need to raise that. And, I don't know who's paying that and successfully keeping their employees, but we want to make sure that everybody is getting paid a minimum at least $15. I think that the market is probably at $20 now. I don't think government should be pushing it, but we should make sure that people are getting some sort of livable wage at this point. And $7.25 is not it.
Not it.
Yeah.
I always look at Milwaukee, in the state, like we are the city and a state of like a tale of two cities, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned a lot of the, I'm going to call it, you didn't say it, but downtown development with Fiserv, and Rockwell is downtown and on the southeast side. So we see a lot of that economic development down there, but what we lack is, at least throughout the northern parts and the western parts of the city, is more of that impact investment for our populations who have historically struggled. And that's not just in Milwaukee, that's in the rural areas across the state. I'm sure in the west side of the state. I couldn't tell you where city are you from?
I live in Viroqua, which is a little small.
Viroqua.
So I
have never heard of that town before.
I've heard of it, but
It's over by LaCrosse.
Yeah. Okay. LaCrosse. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I imagine, these issues, we're focusing on Milwaukee because we're here, but some of these issues are parallel to our rural communities and our suburban communities across the state. So how can, as a governor, how can you ensure, or what is your plan to make sure that the cities across the state, the Madisons and then the bigger cities, are not just investing in those downtown development hubs? How are we reaching across to make sure that the the rest of the city and the state are able to take advantage of those economic development opportunities?
Yeah, well, the first thing I'll say is that across the state, everybody is waking up in the morning thinking about, how do I take care of my family? How do I deliver for my loved ones? How can I support myself? So it's the same conversation, to your point, Jordan, all across the state. As I look at Milwaukee, I think that there is that investment in the downtown that's important, but we have to lean in and really invest, especially in Century City, in the Northwest side, to make sure that we're giving opportunities to folks in their communities. Like when I think about a community as big as Milwaukee, I think about the neighborhoods and making sure that you can walk out your door, you can access good schools, you can access healthcare, and you can access your jobs. So you shouldn't have to travel, commute excessively for your jobs. You should be able to find good work in your own communities. And of course, like Century City, years ago supported a middle class that was successful. And with the departure of that manufacturing, we need to now look and find different ways to bring jobs back in there. And, I talked to a number of different companies over the years that were interested and looking and like, should I? And I think at that moment, when we have someone interested in coming into the Northwest side, we got to jump on it and we got to make it happen. And we got to be like all hands on deck. Yeah. Senator Baldwin and I would talk about like, how do we get something there? What do we have to do? And, I think that it has to be an all-in effort. It has to be local, it has to be state. We all have to be working on it together.
So, and you have this great role experience with leading the WEDC, because you have already had and built relationships with some of those outside business and investors. So, first question is, when you're having those conversations and you're pitching the state of Wisconsin, what are some of the critiques or things that are keeping some of those investments out of Milwaukee? What are they saying? And then how are you combating that as a part of your platform to assure them that there's a bridge that could be crossed to entice them into bringing those businesses opportunities here?
Yeah, and then to addendum to that too, especially with our grocery stores, because like you're saying they're leaving at neck break speed. Like, what is going on? So yeah, can you answer to that too?
Yeah,
about getting more.
So we're sure. I would be curious to see from inside just what are they actually saying? Like, oh, we're not investing because the crime is too high. That's what we're hearing all the time now. That I'm sure that's a part of it, but that can't be the biggest issue in my opinion. But from someone who's in the seat and having this conversation, what are some of your insights?
No, well, I would say that the main thing when I'm talking to companies about coming to Wisconsin that they're interested in is, do you have the workforce? And being able to demonstrate that within the area that the business is going to land, there's the skills and the workforce that they need. That's really reliant on data and being able to document and say, yeah, we've got the people, we've got this. And I think that that's lacking within Milwaukee, to be able to say, this is the skill set, or we can train people up and, work with the technical college. Like, we would work down in the Southeast with Gateway, and they would say, we're going to train people to do this. And so I think there's opportunities to work with MATC and say, let's make sure that when we're talking to businesses, we've got a really good relationship, and UW Milwaukee, we can deliver the folks that people need to work. Right. I think the other challenge is just making sure that the government is aligned in how we're talking to the company and saying, we want you to come here. If we have one part of the government, whether it's local or state, saying, we want more regulations, or we want, to have these requirements, starts to make the business go, well, you guys aren't talking the same talk to me. And that makes me nervous. And I think, when you think about supermarkets and making sure that we don't have food deserts, I think that's another place where the state can step in and support. With the data, right? Any business is going to say, well, is the market there? What's going to happen? But then also saying, this is actually going to benefit our community so much that we want to incentivize you to be here. We're going to, make these extra efforts. And I think that we need to have a really flexible government that's able to step in and say, not having a supermarket is such a negative that we need to put our finger on the scale and make sure that the market shows up here.
So before you, I know. So now we're in the nerd conversation now. So
go for it.
So this is I tell people I'm thinking about the Mamdani effect. And so he just recently the city of New York just purchased a number of buildings or school buildings, and they're turning them into publicly owned grocery stores. Right? Is that something that you think is feasible here when we think about new innovative approaches or how we handle these processes? Is that something that you think could happen here? Do we have the political will to do something like that? So can you just elaborate a little bit on your thoughts around that?
For like a they set prices.
Yeah. I don't know the details, but it's
I'm reading a little bit of it, but I heard that they even set prices where it's affordable. Like eggs can't be sold for more than this amount. It was like I was like, oh wow, that's different.
Yeah.
I don't think government's going to be very good at running grocery stores. I gotta say.
Okay. That's right.
If you think about like fresh produce, like I feel like you're going to end up with a bunch of cans and a bunch of bags of flour and rice, which is valuable, right? But then it's not like what you really need, which is fresh food and produce and things like that. What we did in West Allis and West Milwaukee is support independent owned grocery stores. So the I'm trying to think of the name. Sorry, I'll let it go.
In West Allis?
But in West Allis, a Hispanic family-owned business that has now opened 4 markets in that part of town. With support from WEDC, we helped with a grant to the business to help get them started. So providing some of that capital. And the food is very, thinking about what the community wants. So they took over.
Is it the El Rey stores? It's not El Rey.
No, it starts with an M. It's like
El Rey Mercado. No, I just said that.
No, it starts with an M, and I'm frustrated that I can't think of what it is.
Yeah, we'll come back to that. Yeah, you're right. She's like
Montebello or something like that.
Monticello,
right?
Because there's one on 27th Street.
Right.
There's one on. I know exactly. I don't know if it's. I'll look it up, but
So they took over an old Walmart that had closed.
Yep.
And because the Hispanic community there doesn't really buy that much frozen food, they took out a whole bunch of the freezers, and they're providing really fresh produce, a great meat market, and it's family owned and locally owned. And the state was able to provide some support to help get it going and get it up and running. And so, that I think is one way to combat the food desert situation. I think the challenge, with the Pick and Saves and the Kroger's is they're just all bottom line and all the clothes, right? They're all just like forcing the bottom line, raising prices. And I think having someone family owned who is from the community really helps to be responsive to what the community needs.
So let me ask you this then. I call you Missy or Secretary Hughes. I'm a deferential guy.
I love it.
That's just me. Okay. So a question. Okay. So how would one, because we do have a local grocery store here that's Black owned. I think it's called Sherman Foods. Tay, do you remember the grocery store that's Black owned on Sherman? Yeah. Sherman Foods. How would one be able to get a grant or apply for something like that? Because I think that'd be great if he could. And that's a family-owned store. I've gone there a few times. They're so nice in there too. And it's a family-owned store. So I think that'd be great for them to expand to like that old Aldi's that just closed. That's on Sherman. That building or something like that. How would someone be able to get a grant or something like that to fund, like how they did the Monticello?
I'm looking.
Yeah. How would one do that?
Yeah. Well, really, what WEDC thinks about and what you think about in economic development is taking an empty space and bringing it into economic value.
Okay.
And so that's what we do with what's called the Community Development Investment Grant. And there are, we have, I still say we, even though I'm not in charge of the agency anymore. Okay. WEDC has representatives here that work in, there are 4 people that work here in Milwaukee to help support those kinds of programs. The African American Chamber of Commerce is a great place to go for information.
Monterey, sorry.
What is it?
Monterey,
yeah.
The market,
yeah. I know it was I just struggle in there.
Yeah, sorry.
We were so
I was gonna
we were so sure it was Montebello.
I know,
Monticello.
I go to the one on 27th Street whenever I'm over there because they got a lot of stuff in there. But sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, okay.
I digress.
It's all right.
I can't remember their name.
Okay.
But But there's places in the community where you can go and research and see whether or not there's opportunities for those types of grants. They're not always going to be available, but I think that, that's a way that as governor, I would look for opportunities to support making these things happen in communities and finding those local opportunities.
Okay.
So segue into, so you mentioned part of the issue around these industries not coming to Milwaukee is the lack of workforce options that are here. So that to me calls directly into our educational system and ensuring that our youth have the proper tutelage to do what they need to do, right? So what are your thoughts on just generally education in Wisconsin? What are your plans on how we ensure that every one of our kids has the opportunity to live fruitful and productive lives in the state?
Well, our public schools have been desperately underfunded by the Republicans for a number of years and really undercut.
To the tune of $800 million.
Right. And, and the choice was made to create the choice school system. And so we find ourselves in a place where it seems like they're at odds with each other. And the reality is here in Milwaukee, many families have chosen choice schools because they thought that was their best option. So we're stuck, right? We're in this place. My first thing is to say, we want to make sure that we are fully funding our public schools, and that when a parent is making the choice of where to send their kids to school, they would be like, absolutely, I want to send my kids to the public schools. That's where we need to get to as a state. And we can have, the fight about whether public dollars should go to choice schools or not. That's a whole mess. Let's first make sure that we really support our public schools, and let's dedicate ourselves to that. And I hear that across the state.
Yeah.
And MPS, I think, is, the place where we need to start to make sure that is an option that parents will choose here in Milwaukee and start to rebuild that opportunity for kids. I think that there's also a real, I feel like the fight we have over public schools and funding for public schools is also a way to avoid the conversation about how do we support kids when they're not in school? How do we make sure that they have good food? How do we make sure that they are protected from trauma? How do we make sure that, they have stable housing? All of those things are outside of teachers' control,
right?
But the teachers have to deal with the consequences of our not dealing with that. So I think that that's a place also that we need to get to, where we're really addressing the inequities that we see, especially here in Milwaukee, when it comes to kids and their needs, and making sure that we're meeting their needs.
Yeah. Question for you. So let's get into more about Missy, if we can. So you're in the Evers cabinet. I believe it's Sarah Godlewski is also running, and Lieutenant Governor Rodriguez is also running as well. So as a cabinet member, what made you decide to throw your hat in the ring?
Well, I, was in the governor's room, the conference room, and the cabinet room for 6.5 years, all through the pandemic. And I watched as he managed so many different challenges and so many different, different stakeholders and things coming at him. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. I want to do that job. And, I recently heard the analogy of a buffalo walks into a storm to get through it, to get to the other side. And I'm like, all right, I guess I'm a buffalo, because I want to walk into this storm. I want to bring my skills and my experience to the state and help get through this incredibly difficult time that we're in, and make sure that we're coming through it with our strongest foot forward. And to me, that's about building an economy and making sure that people can pay their bills, that people can get the education that they need. Because the same kind of thing as we went through the pandemic, we got to get through this as strong as we can, come out the other side, and then be ready to rebuild. And we're going to have so much work to do, because we've had years and years of Republican rule here in Wisconsin, and now we're having the added challenge of what's happening in Washington. Like, we got to just keep fighting through this, and we need someone who can help find as many solutions as possible and help, bring people together to find those solutions. Because I really believe, and the work that I've done through my life is about bringing people together. Everybody throws their priorities into the middle, and then you fight through it and you figure out the path forward. And everybody has to be bought in to what your solutions are. Otherwise, they fall apart right away.
Right.
So you got to do the work to find the solutions and get everybody on board. And, like we saw last week, compromise is hard.
Yes, it is.
And, but you got to find those compromises, because otherwise you never move forward. You just, everybody goes into their corners and you're stuck. And so we got to figure out how to get unstuck and invest in ourselves and believe in ourselves.
I watching the campaign, I have to say this: the Evers administration, I should say, when he took office, I was so scared for him, because I viewed him as his grandpa, and I'm like, he's a high school principal, nice guy, nice guy, and I'm like, but is he going to be able to? Because these Republicans are something different, especially here. There's something different. I'm thinking, is he going to be able to, stand up and hold up with them? And actually, he's done a phenomenal job.
Yeah,
I think of staving off a lot of the things that they were trying to, these dastardly, horrible things they're trying to do here in the state. And just seeing how he grew into the role, and he's like a real seasoned statesman now. It's just funny to watch that, because he wasn't in politics like that. He was the state superintendent.
Yeah.
That was that. And before that, he was a high school principal. So. And administrator. So just seeing how that administration evolved into what it is now, I thought that was just amazing to see. But do you feel that with this, hopefully this is going to be a blue tidal wave, that we can turn this legislator back blue and get some things done? If that doesn't happen, and as governor, you return, you get into the governor's office, and we have a GOP controlled legislator, what would be your plans to kind of work through a lot of that? Because they're going to be throwing everything against it.
Yeah. I worked with the Republicans when I was secretary, because obviously we had a Republican legislature the whole time. I was confirmed twice by the Senate unanimously as secretary, as the only one who was confirmed twice. And I think it really shows a willingness to work with them and to figure out, like, okay, there's a lot of places where our values don't meet and mix, but there are places where we can figure out how to help Wisconsin. And so I never chose, how Donald Trump chooses red states versus blue states.
Yes.
That's, you can't do that with economic development.
Yeah.
You take the opportunities and you take the wins where you can. I would have Republicans up on stage with me, cutting ribbons and, getting
even after they fought you for getting the funds for it, but then up there taking the credit.
But even that, it's, you speak the language. You're the economic development chair. And so there are some synergies that you bring to the table that automatically aligns with some of their policy prescriptions and platforms that are more natural, as opposed to some of our other candidates who are just like, no, right? Whatever it is, right? So I think that I always try to figure out the silver bullet for each one of the candidates. And all of you guys, all 80 of you guys have silver bullets, right? But yours is, you're able to really get into the economic narrative and have those conversations and speak that language and kind of have that push and pull with them that I think can make compromising and negotiating bills a little bit more palatable.
Yeah, and I think what I would often do is I would be like, look over here, look at this win, I got you over here, and then over here I'm doing the things that I really want to do. Like a good example of that is getting wins with big companies coming here and things like that. But at the same time, at WEDC we had to find new offices, and so when Ruben Anthony with the Urban League of Madison said, I'm building the Black Business Hub.
Shout out to the Black Business Hub.
I said, I want to be in the Black Business Hub. So look over here, Republicans, look at all the cool stuff we're doing. And then we moved into the Black Business Hub as an anchor tenant there and support, we're in the community that is experiencing economic development. We're talking to small businesses that are located in the Black Business Hub to understand the challenges. Like we have businesses, there is Rasta Barista that's importing coffee from Jamaica and paying tariffs. And so it's like all of a sudden the team is like, oh my God, these tariffs are making it so difficult for our small businesses because we were right there learning about it. And so that's, the way I think I would manage if there was a Republican legislature. Look over here, get the wins over here while you're getting the actual, the things done.
Yeah. Okay. So with this spending package that was just shot down, were you a part of putting that together?
I was not.
You was not. Okay.
No, because I resigned in order to run for governor. So I, watched. But when the announcement came out, I really felt that it was important that we give it a hard look.
Okay.
And I came out with a big statement that said, like, let's look at it. Let's, the compromise is hard and important to keep things moving forward. I was really disappointed to see some of the other candidates immediately start throwing rocks at it, especially because Governor Evers is the education governor, and dedicated, and if he thought that this was a way to get funds to our public schools, then we deserve to give it a hard look. And people can use some relief when it comes to property taxes and things like that.
Yeah, property owner here in Milwaukee.
Right. So it was disappointing that we, and I think Wisconsin is so tired of the politics as usual, and the and people just immediately not agreeing with each other. That I think that was really frustrating. And I recognize that compromise is hard, that governing is hard, but as leaders you have to just lean in and try to get things done.
So given that, as you talk about a strategic approach, as governor, would you have made a more strategic approach on how you communicate that with the rest of the legislature, how the deal was brokered? I feel like some of the issues with the disagreements was because it wasn't talked about robustly throughout the rest of the legislature. And then this last minute deal came through, and it was, where'd this come from? Now, I don't know if it really just came up out of there. I don't know the nuance of that, but that's what I'm hearing in the conversation I'm having in my own spaces is, this deal came out of nowhere. We have these 3 elected officials who will no longer be in office after the next 6 months, and they're holding our future hostage with this deal to make themselves look politically feasible. So, how would you have approached that, given the compromising nature you seem to have?
Well, I don't want to second guess any, and really, I don't want to second guess Governor Evers, because he's been in a completely different world than all of us, experience for the last 8 years.
He's like, hold the door, hold the
door. He has delivered for us again and again, especially with fair maps and all of that.
Yes.
Here's what I would say though. I approach everything with this mindset of, when you point a finger at somebody, there's 3 fingers pointing back at you. So always, if something fails, it's like, what could I have done better? And I think in this moment, everyone should be looking and saying, well, that sucked. How could we have done better? Like, why, how could I have done better as governor of having a more open and conversation? How could the legislature have done better being in the room? Like, why weren't they in the room? What dynamic did we have going that kept people out of the room, or made people think, let's create a deal and then we'll announce it to everybody? And this is, I think, really the broken politics that we have today, that we don't feel like we can have people in the room, because what's going to, are they going to run and do a press conference when they don't, when a meeting goes bad, or whatever it is? Or we need to have good debate, and we need to be willing to have that debate. And I think that's where we all have to drive to get back to, is taking self-awareness, taking responsibility for our own actions, and saying, what could I have done to make that work better, rather than just pointing fingers at folks.
Because I've heard, like you said, and just to tag what Jordan said, I've heard the same thing. People were talking just like, hey, reason why it kind of tanked, because a lot of folks that should have been involved weren't involved, kind of put on the side. And it's like, I get what he's trying to do, trying to get it pushed through, but like there should have been more conversations about it to get more folks on board, and just have some talk about how this is going to actually work, and is it going to actually help individual like myself who pays property taxes and want my taxes to be lowered, please. Jesus Christ.
But you guys know, as leaders in the community, when you come out with something, and people are like, well, I didn't know about that. You're like, okay, well, I had 5 meetings.
It was in the email. or we had a whole meeting about this, like about the
right? And then as leader, you're like, yes. Now tell me what you want to say. Like, you always have to be, that's what I mean when you say you always have to be leaning back in and be like, okay, okay,
Yeah.
like, let's have the conversation now then, and try to find that way through. And I think the challenge is everybody involved in this conversation last week was a leader and had the opportunity to find that way through. And some people didn't take it. A lot of people didn't take it. So here we are with no deal.
Here we are. Yeah. Go back to the drawing board, right?
Back to the drawing board.
That's a fair assessment, because I mean I was caught off guard by it, and I was trying to do the back research, and a few people came out right away. I was like, did y'all even read what happened? And then some people didn't say anything at all. So there's opposite ends of the spectrum. So it is what it is.
Yeah. And you gotta, especially with Governor Evers, I believe that there's good intentions.
Absolutely.
He deserves good intentions.
Definitely,
and that okay, I know you're coming to this with trying to get something done in your last few months here. So
okay, well, that's all I got.
I could talk. No. Is there anything you want to leave us with? Do you have 30-second, 1 minute just pitch to our population here? Again, our aim is to provide a platform for as many people, especially our gubernatorial candidates, to introduce them, because a lot of people. There's a lot of y'all, like I said, I would say 84 of you guys in the race right now.
There's a gaggle.
There you go. Okay.
And there's some similarities, but our constituency needs to know who you guys are so that they are informed. They can make the right choice that best impacts their lives. So if you want to just leave our people with a few words of why now, then we can wrap it up from there.
Well, first, I want to say thank you so much for doing this, and for your listeners and your viewers. Thank you for paying attention. It's a really important time for Wisconsin. We're essentially going to be picking a whole new government. And Jordan, you've thrown your name in the ring. And
Let's go.
I've thrown my name in the ring, just because we're here to serve and we're here to, try and make the state better. I think that I provide someone who has had a lot of experience around the state, both in the public sector and the private sector. I know how the state runs. I know what runs the state. And I think that, we don't know what the future is going to hold. And so the choice that we have to make is based on leadership and experience, and trusting that the person is bringing forward the values of that you're looking for. And, I think we talk a lot about issues. We talk a lot about healthcare and childcare and public schools. We're a lot of agreement on those things. And I think that's where people are really struggling to see what the differences are. So I would encourage folks to look at, what's this person's experience? What have they actually done? And what will they carry forward into the office? I don't think Governor Evers ever knew that he was going to have to bring the whole state through a pandemic. And you can't practice that stuff. You
have to fight all the way through to keep mandates, because they
right. And so is that person going to be able to lead us through very troubled times and do it in a way that protects us and moves us forward? And I believe that I have the skills to do that. That's why I've thrown my name into the ring. Like, if I don't think I was going to be good at the job, I wouldn't want the job. But I think I'm going to be good at the job, and that's why I'm here.
Some people jump in, put their hat in the ring, and know they shouldn't be putting their hat in the ring. But I'm not saying that's you, but we know some people.
We know some folks. We said their name on this platform, so hopefully they can come.
So just really quickly, where can people find more information about your campaign? Do you have any upcoming events, things that are happening specifically here in Milwaukee or regionally that we can tune into?
Yeah, I am. More information about me can be found at missyforgovernor.com, which is MISSY. That's why you should call me Missy rather than Secretary. And you can find information about events and where we're going to be. There are a ton more than we can count of forums for people to come and really watch. And so, watch your social media for things about that. Missy for WI is my social media handle.
So that's they can find you on Facebook, Instagram,
Facebook, all the
TikTok,
everything.
Whole link tree.
Yeah.
The whole gang.
The whole thing. You can get more social media than you asked for from me at this point.
All right.
But yeah, I mean, I think, tuning in and figuring out and talking to your neighbors about what you're thinking is really good. And if there's anything we're learning right now, it's the power of your vote.
Yes.
Yep.
And
Yes.
so get involved and practicing using that power every chance you get.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you heard from Missy this evening, you guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you again.
Thank you
so much for coming into our little, as I said, our little shack. Producer, you got anything for us? We wrapping? Okay. Well, we're going to wrap again. Thank you all for tuning in.
One announcement for next week.
Yes.
So next week we have Joe Brennan coming in. He is the 5th out of the 7. So we're still waiting on you, Mandela. We're still waiting on you, Kelda, to get back to us. We call them out when they don't come in the show.
Did we put out any feelers for Gotlowski?
Did we? I haven't personally, but we can. I can.
She's running for lieutenant governor.
Okay.
We can bring her in. We're bringing her in. But yeah, so next week we'll have Joe Brennan in, and then we have some other people coming in.
Nick from the Black Caucus and Democratic Party here. He's going to come in and talk about some stuff that we need to hear, especially for those of us that register as Democrats and liberals in this state. We need to hear from him. They're going to come the following week after Brennan, so the first week of June. So. Okay. And remember, guys, get your IDs. Go get your registrations up. Make sure you're on the roll. Everything, because we cannot sit out 90 million people. Look where this got us. We cannot just sit out this week. We have to put boots on the ground. And the way we battle is in that ballot box.
Yes.
So August the 11th is the primary. So we're gearing up for that. So make sure you guys just pay attention, and we'll be sending out some information. Again, thanks for coming out. And hi, Mom.
You beat me to it. Hi, Mom.
Gotcha. You all have a good night. Thanks for tuning in.
All right.